they do not understand and a game that they do not control, leading to indebtedness. In order to run these states, which are alien to us, you then incur debt. And then these institutions also ensure that they control your institutions of decision making. So you'll find them offering you advisory services. You'll find World Bank offering you a Ministry of Finance advisory services. So you find yourself in a situation where the ability to run your country is reduced because you have gotten into a debt trap. And that, in my view, is what IMF and World Bank loves.
Hi, so in this epic interview, I'm going to present to you PLO Lumumba, the renowned professor, Pan-Africanist, talking about how institutions like the World Bank and the IMF were not set up to help poor countries. As a matter of fact, they were set up rather to help rich countries, and after that, they decided to also use this same institution to prey on poor countries. So that is the situation, and he's talking about it, and I want you to hear it. But before I do that, I want to show you some of the channels that I follow. Actually, I follow a lot of channels, but there's one in particular, the Alpha House. This channel is where I got this interview. So go to this channel, subscribe, and look for the longer version of this interview, which is about 33 minutes.
And these were institutions that were created in those early days to lend, particularly to the European countries that had been devastated by the war. So many African countries and non-African countries in Asia and in Latin America became drafted members of the IMF and the World Bank. So even when we say that Kenya is a member, Nigeria is a member, and all these countries are members and therefore decision makers of the World Bank and the IMF, and much later the WTO, which was also created and was conceived at that time, we must always remember that the membership of these countries is a drafted membership. We must always remember that they do not control these organizations. We must always remember that these institutions are created deliberately to ensure that they are under control, because, as the saying goes, the lender will remain the master of the borrower. And because the international economic architecture is also alien to many African countries, and of course that is true of Asian and Latin American countries, find themselves in a situation where they are playing a game that they do not understand and a game that they do not control, leading to indebtedness. In order to run these states, which are alien to us, you then incur debt. And then these institutions also ensure that they control your institutions of decision making. So you'll find them offering you advisory services. You'll find World Bank offering you a Ministry of Finance advisory services, IMF offering you a Ministry of Finance advisory services, and it's in the best interest of any lender that you continue to borrow. Sooner rather than later, you find yourself in a trap, and this trap creates an environment where you can no longer repay the debts that you borrow. That must also be understood in the context of the recruitment of political leadership in games that allow for corruption and wastage. So many countries therefore find themselves in a situation through the advisory services of IMF and World Bank and other institutions where they can no longer afford to service their debts. They have borrowed domestically, they cannot service the debts. They have borrowed from these multilateral institutions which they claim to be members of, and they are not in control. They have borrowed bilaterally from other institutions, because there is multilateral borrowing and there is bilateral. You'll find a country has gone to China, has gone to Turkey, has gone to the United States, has gone to the European Union, or individual countries such as Italy and the United Kingdom, and they have borrowed. So you find yourself in a situation where the ability to run your country is reduced because you have gotten into a debt trap. And that, in my view, is what IMF and World Bank loves.